It's not me. Darlington Okogo, can we please have you to the stage? Darlington Okogo, to the stage, please. Darlington Okogo, to the stage, please. Final call for Darlington Okogo. Do I just start? Ladies and gentlemen, it's an absolute pleasure to be here with you today, joined by friends, colleagues, distinguished guests. It is an absolute pleasure. For those of you that I don't have the pleasure of knowing, my name is Bilal Mateen. I'm both the Chief AI Officer at an INGO called Path, and I have the privilege of being a Professor of Machine Learning for Health in the UK. I'm hoping at some point one of our brilliant speakers will run through the door, so if you see me staring at it intently, that's why. But let me start in the same way nonetheless, which is I want to channel one of our panelists and speakers from earlier this morning, also a co-chair of the summit today. Strive, as he sat on this stage, said, "This is a continent of hustlers." And I completely believe him. The only thing I'd add is it's a continent of incredibly successful hustlers. I think at last count, we were just short of a dozen African unicorns. And we can debate whether they're health or not. I'm a true believer in the quote from Professor Sir Michael Marmot that every policy is a health policy, every minister is a health minister, and I'd argue the brilliant unicorns that we have in the digital financial services space across Africa are health companies, whether we believe them to be or not. But semantics aside, we can all agree that there is not yet a healthcare unicorn on the continent. And we are surrounded today by brilliant innovators, entrepreneurs. I genuinely believe that that unicorn could be in this room. I was hoping I might introduce someone who has been doing incredible work in Ghana, and I'm going to make him feel as bad as I possibly can for not being here and missing this. But if you do find the opportunity to meet him today, he has he's put up his work downstairs in the alleyway where the Grand Challenge grantees and others are working. His name is Darlington Okogo. He's the CEO of Minnow Health Africa AI Labs. He's done phenomenal work in AI for science, AI for health, and the thing that I would really love to call out is that he's managed to innovate at a pace that we all think is impressive, but has done so at the same time bringing the Ghanaian regulator along for the ride. And the reason you see me smiling, ladies and gentlemen, is he's just walked in and he's not going to get to sit down because I'm going to pull him up on stage. So will you join me in welcoming Darlington Okogo?
I'll need like a few seconds to catch my breath. Hello, everyone. I hope you are all well. So I'm Darlington Akogo, founder, CEO of Mino Health AI Labs. I'm still trying to catch my breath. I was running here, sorry. Yeah, it's okay. So we started Mino Health in 2017 with the goal of democratizing quality healthcare. So unfortunately, if you take our continent, we have the most extreme case of representing how poor healthcare systems globally are. And so it was very important to us to solve this, but we wanted to solve it in a global context. You know, I can remember vividly some years ago running into someone and they asked me, why were you doing AI? Why don't you just focus on USSD solutions? There's nothing wrong with USSD solutions. It's that the nature of our problem are grand, probably the grandest, and therefore it demands the grandest of technologies or the grandest of solutions. So with this mission in mind, for the last, 8 or so years, we've been building AI solutions for healthcare. We've developed AI solutions that are able to screen for different diseases, diagnose, so they can take in medical images, say X-rays or mammograms, even to the point where we got approval from FDA Ghana, making it the first standalone AI system to get this approval in Africa. But then that was not enough because the original, you are far too kind, thank you. But the original goal was essentially to solve all the problems that we solve in global health, which is quite an insane task. But the technology was not there yet to allow us to do that. When this became relatively possible, we ventured towards moving away from trying to build AI solutions, which we had done for several years, to building AGI. So AGI stands for Artificial General Intelligence. Realistically, what that meant was that it's not been achieved yet, but we wanted to build a single AI system that would eventually do everything in healthcare and biology. And the exciting thing is that we've come pretty close to pulling that off. We already have something close enough. So with pilot funding from the Gates Foundation, we've now built an AI system called Moremi AI. Basically, with this one AI system, it's able to screen, diagnose, support treatment planning, prescription, triage prognosis for several hundreds of diseases. So we're talking about communicable diseases as well as non-communicable diseases. We went from building AI systems that within a single AI system, it supports X-ray or a single AI system for mammograms. And now with Moremi AI, we support up to 30 different medical imaging modalities. So everything that I mentioned earlier, but now we support microscopy and several other modalities. It's multimodal, which means that we're able to process images, but we can process lab data, we can process text, everything. And that was not enough. Within the same AI system, we then took it to the biology space, and then we started working on drug discovery. So as it stands right now, we've created an agent which in an end-to-end way can design drugs for several disease targets. We've already done this for malaria. We've created antibodies. We can do it for small molecules, antibiotics, vaccines, and the list goes on and on. It all started with a theory that if we took one AI system and we gave it a whole lot of data, we can train it to do a whole lot of things. So with a lot of partnerships in different parts of the world, we've been able to train a version of this AI system, which arguably is the most general purpose AI system in both healthcare and biology anywhere in the world. So within one AI system, we can do several tasks across all of healthcare and biology. And now we've partnered with several people to run implementations in Ghana, in Nigeria. In Nigeria, we are scaling this up to 2 million patients. We have partnership in the US, Brazil, India, Pakistan. And then as of this event, so to show how successful this event is, we are just forming some new partnership with Barbados, where we'll be rolling out this AI system too as well. So I'm excited for two things. One, we are able to actually create advanced technologies that solve problems as they exist in Africa. But then these technologies do not have to be 10 years behind other parts of the world. We can build something that is quite ahead. I made some claim that said that basically AlphaFold won the Nobel Prize, but arguably our AI system, Moremi Bio Agent, would have much more impact. I love my friends from Google, so this is not the most diplomatic thing to say, but protein folding is just one aspect. We now have an AI system that can design new drugs and then validate it by itself without any human being involved, and it can do this for millions of targets. So what we've done now is remarkable. The next couple of years is scaling it up to make sure that we are not only solving Africa's problem, but by doing that, we solve global problems too as well. Thank you.
I love how Darlington says that we did, whereas I think he means to say he did. And it is genuinely remarkable work that was well deserving of that round of applause, and I'm sure many, many more over the years as we begin to see those drug targets get validated and come to market. But now, onto our panel, and we have a brilliant set of guests joining us. So I'm going to say their name in absolutely no specific order. They know where to sit. So would you join me in welcoming the Minister of Health for Rwanda, Dr. Sabin Nsanzimana. The former CEO, co-founder of Mozilla, Mitchell Baker. The Executive Director at the Wellcome Trust, Professor Rachel McKendry. The CEO of Adore and Adore Africa, Dino Reh. The President for Global Health at the Gates Foundation, Dr. Trevor Mandel. And the CEO for Rwanda's Social Security Board, Dr. Regis Rugemanshuro. Thank you very much. Make my way over here. Whoa. I'm a short man. So I'm going to break the first cardinal rule of any live event or panel, which is to say, you've all got your phones out. So if you can click the little button on it that allows you to dial a phone call for me. I see some hands moving, not enough. Phones out, able to dial a number. I want you to take down this number. So it's 0788-126-013. And what that number is it's a free phone number that gives you access to a large language model-based clinical assistant that one of our phenomenal partners, Viamo, will be launching in Nigeria next month with the benefit of Gates Foundation funding. Say it again. Okay. Well, people got interested when they found out what it was. Great. So it's 0788-126-013. And what it's meant to do is support community health extension workers in Nigeria provide best-in-class care at the last mile. And now I'm going to break the second rule because I don't actually want you to call that number right now. I'm going to call it for you.
Welcome back. I'm Chua, your digital assistant. You can listen to the instructions by pressing 0 at any time. I am available every weekday from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. To continue, press 1. If you want advice about a specific patient, press 1. Please ask your question after the tone. Remember to speak clearly and slowly and then press 1 when you are done. Please ask only one question at a time.
I've just assessed a 4-month-old baby that's just come back from Saudi Arabia. She has a red, circular, itchy rash on her chest, her back, and her arms. Her mother's worried that it's a flesh-eating bacteria. What should I tell her?
Please wait a moment while I get you an answer.
It doesn't take very long.
Thank you for waiting. I understand that you are concerned about a 4-month-old baby with a red, circular, itchy rash on her chest, back, and arms, and the mother is worried it might be a flesh-eating bacteria. Firstly, it is important to reassure the mother that flesh-eating bacteria, also known as necrotizing fasciitis, is extremely rare, especially in infants. The symptoms described are more commonly associated with conditions like eczema, ringworm, the fungal infection, or an allergic reaction.
So I'm going to stop it there because I can reassure you that my niece is absolutely fine. A GP with 20 years experience in the UK treated her for a ringworm. She didn't get better after a week. The rash got a little bit angrier, and we all decided it was eczema, and she's been fine on some emollients. But really the point is that we now live in a world where you can get expert-level advice in real time at the last mile. There's no internet on this thing. At a push of a button, right? And that is the world of generative AI that we are living in. Is it ready for prime time? I think that's what the evaluation studies that we've very fortunately been funded to undertake will help us address. But that's really the enthusiasm I think we're all coming to this conversation with. So I want to start by turning to the Minister of Health from Rwanda, Dr. Sabin, and say, being in government is a privilege. You get a view of the world that few of us very, very rarely do. And we're surrounded by brilliant entrepreneurs, innovators. We just heard from one. If you could channel that excitement towards solving a singular problem in health, what would it be?
I think that is a difficult but also an easy question to me. Starting by saying that the solutions are within our means, and with young people, it can be even faster because they have the liberty to even try things that some of us 50s, 60s, 40s are probably hesitant to do. So for young innovators, from my point of view, I would say that in healthcare, you need to answer two important questions. One is how people access medical care, and how much do they pay for the medical services. And the biggest challenge we have in our healthcare system, particularly on this continent, is the workforce, which also has an effect on those two elements I talked about. So if we can solve that issue of how the limited number of workforce we have can still handle the highest burden of diseases that we are facing, connecting both will be a very big contribution to the healthcare system. So how to do that? I think it's in your hands, it's in our hands, because with solution, with technology, there's a way one single doctor or one nurse can treat thousands of people if him or he is supported by some of these technologies that we are talking about. So for innovators, I would say, if I have to give you a task or a mission to solve our problems, that will be the first one. How do we help our healthcare providers in limited numbers to deal with the burden that is present with diagnostics, treatment, follow-up, and even preventive medicine. So that comes number one, number two, number three, and then I will have other tasks on my list. Thank you.
Fantastic. I couldn't agree more with this idea that we need to prioritize that human-centered approach, Minister. I want to throw into the mix one other big challenge that I think that we need to navigate, which is this dearth of high-quality evidence of what works, especially in the context in which both we are and we're trying to work, right? There was a brilliant scoping review published in a journal called Lancet Digital Health a few months ago that said across the entire continent of Africa, there had only at that time, this was March this year, there had only been 2 randomized control trials, the highest quality of evidence for an AI-based tool. Now, as is the nature of AI, it was out of date 2 months later because the third one happened in Malawi, which is phenomenal progress. The 4th one, funded by the Gates Foundation and their partner Penda Health, is happening now. So slow but steady progress. And I want to turn to you, Rachel. You're a bona fide professor. You've been building these tools. You've been thinking about this day in, day out for years. And now you're the executive director at the Wellcome Trust, this enormous research funding entity that has made such an impact. 2 of those 3 RCTs were funded by Wellcome at Malawi, Liverpool Wellcome, your institute in Malawi, or your partnership in Malawi. Why does this matter? Like, why do we need the evidence? What problem are we trying to solve, and what does it help us do?
Thank you, Bilal, and thank you to the Minister for hosting us in Rwanda. I'm hugely excited to be here. I should say it's my 3rd week in this new role at the Wellcome Trust, but I prioritise coming to Africa for this summit, and I can really feel the incredible progress that's being made in Africa, and there's tremendous opportunities ahead. So why does this evidence gap matter? It creates uncertainty. It creates uncertainty for policymakers to know which tools to scale and can be adopted. So within the Wellcome Trust, we are looking to grow our new AI program to invest in building the evidence base to identify which tools are fit for purpose and scalable and could deliver the real-world evidence of benefit to patients, to populations, and to the health system. And to the Minister's point, I think health systems around the world face increasing challenges, workforce shortages. I think by 2030, it's predicted that there'll be a shortage of over 11 million workforce within the health system. And AI has the opportunity to fill some of those gaps and deliver care, particularly in primary care settings and decentralized settings. But really, this evidence is crucial. The review you point to is an interesting one, and it's one of many pieces of evidence that we're looking at. So only 86 RCTs around the world met the criteria of using advanced AI for patient-centered care with clinical management. As you said, 2 were in sub-Saharan Africa. I should highlight one was in Rwanda. So it's diabetic retinopathy, and it showed positive outcomes, the RAIDERS trial, showing a greater uptake, 30% uptake in linkage to care, not funded by the Wellcome Trust. But the 2 that have been funded by the Wellcome Trust, as you say, are in Malawi, using AI for X-ray image analysis. And we'd like to grow that. I'll say for context, there are only 3 trials in the UK. Okay, just to make sure that that narrative is clear. There's huge opportunities to grow that, and as I say, through the Wellcome Trust, we are committed to equitable AI so that everybody around the world can benefit from these tremendous advances. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rachel. Trevor, I want to turn to you now and give you and your team some credit, because whilst many people in this room, on this stage, have been working in the space of AI for health for many, many years, I think it's also undeniable the catalytic impact of the Grand Challenges call that you ran, I think 18 months ago, almost 2 years ago, had on the field and catalyzing the conversations we're having. I know you convened the grantees yesterday for a conversation. I'm curious what your reflections are from having brought those people together, having seen what opportunities they saw for the applications for AI in health. What were your takeaways?
Well, thank you, Bill, and I do want to thank the government of Rwanda for giving us the privilege of supporting this fantastic get-together of, I think, just the right people to discuss this topic. So as you mentioned, we got together 110 Grand Challenges grantees yesterday. And we were there with the Minister Paula from Rwanda, Minister from Nigeria and Togo, to have a discussion and actually see some of the work of those grantees. Now, if you go back to the genesis of that, you're right, it was June of 2023, just as this new AI wave was taking root. that we really had the fear that Africa and lower middle income countries in general would be left behind, and we needed to do something urgently. Well, I can say that from the discussions yesterday, and as we've tracked that cohort, which has grown actually, initially it was 50, and then countries came in with additional Grand Challenges funding, so now it's grown to this 110. I think my fears are assuaged, and we really have remarkable talent on the continent that is going to take things forward. Yeah,
I'll clap for that.
We just heard from Darlington Kogo, who was one of the original grantees. But I would say, just related to what Rachel was mentioning, we provided seed funding for these grantees, so they brought their work forward to what you'd call proof of concept in the medical area. So just enough data to assure us that their prototypes are actually working. And typically you would now go to real evidence generation, a phase 3 RCT, to convince a regulator that this is safe and effective for general purpose use. But that's where we are, in the next wave. We need to find those mechanisms to provide the funding for many of those ideas, which are fantastic ideas, to really scale and produce that real-world evidence. So I'm looking at all of our funding partners and indeed the governments around the continent to work with us on, let's get to that next stage. The ideas are great, but we need that real evidence before we would deploy these things widely.
Phenomenal, I'm excited. Dino, on that point, so my reflections, having been on the peripheries of the Grand Challenge work, is the conventional wisdom I've heard for many, many years is that, we need AI to support us with diagnosis, with prognosis. That's where the real value is going to be. There's secretly a silver bullet in there we haven't found yet, but it's there. But my takeaway from seeing many of the grantees is there's incredible value in this direct-to-consumer demand generation work, right? How do you convince the average young woman that some of her sexual behaviors might mean that she'd be best suited to go getting an HIV self-test because that's what she needs in that moment? And I've seen incredible value there. And Dino, I'm going to turn to you. You've been the beneficiary of Gates funding on both sides, right? You've built this rapid diagnostic test reader using computer vision. You're now funded to do this work on AI Hive, creating this empathetic chatbot. I'm curious, what are your reflections from having trying to build these products, seeing the value in both spaces? Am I right? Am I wrong? Help me out.
Bilal, you're always wrong. Just kidding. Thanks very much to the Minister for hosting us. I think we have been lucky to be able to build both provider-facing health AI and consumer-facing. I think in both sets of tools, we faced both opportunities and challenges around 3 key questions. One has been highlighted today, which is a learning agenda and evidence gap, both related to the tech, but also importantly to the use cases, where you introduce them, how you introduce them, and the behavioral side. How do people respond to using these tools? Where is the comfort level? Especially when you're talking about a direct-to-consumer application. The second has been scale, the word we all dream about, we all talk about, and at least on our side, we feel for some of our tools we're at the beginning of scaling. One of them is right here in Rwanda. But when we talk about scale direct to consumers, there's a couple of key aspects. One is an obsession. A big part of our team comes from big tech consumer. Another part of our team comes from African health tech and health programs. The big tech part of the team has that digital tool has value, not just for the healthcare use case, but for parts of their lives that are relevant. So to something Trevor said to us a while ago, how do you make it a lifestyle tool with true value that also covers healthcare? And the third big component, related to scale, the other challenge we have is around sustainable financing models. So it's wonderful that we have a philanthropic and donor community which is galvanizing and providing this catalytic investment. But to truly scale with a government or with a consumer, you need to understand and unlock what the payment mechanism is. Enough value for the consumer to pay or for a government to understand funding it. And where we have an evidence gap right now, to Rachel's point, is around cost value analyses, costing modeling. We need to be able to go to a Minister of Health and say, if you deploy this, here's a fair evidence base to show you cost savings and why you should invest in it. And then the final point is safety. When talking about direct-to-consumer tech, we feel a huge responsibility to not just deploy an AI tool, but to build a safety net around it, something which gives you transparency on an ongoing basis, not just pre-launch, on an ongoing basis to how it's changing, how it's talking to patients or customers, where it makes mistakes because it might get something right 10,000 times but still hallucinates. So we've built an automated monitoring and evaluation framework for consumer tech that we deploy to provide a stakeholder like a government in South Africa with transparency to say, you want to see the metrics of how this is working, you want to see how accurate it is against a set of benchmarks. We think this is the right way to deploy direct-to-consumer AI with transparency and safety. So those have been some of our key both challenges and learnings.
Thanks, Dino. And I want to pick up on that point of cost, transparency, governance, ownership, and control. I don't know how many people realize that we have open source royalty on this stage, and I'm going to embarrass you, Mitchell. Mitchell Baker wrote the original Mozilla public license. I don't want to say how many years ago, but there has been many iterations since, but it was an incredible contribution to the world of open source, and I know that the minister, several people on the stage, myself included, struggle with this traditional transparency controls. There's a trade-off here, right? You've been in the thick of, oh, maybe not. You've been in the thick of this for years, and I'm curious what guidance you'd give both me and our audience.
Well, first I'll reiterate the appreciation and excitement at being here at this gathering. I would say my starting point in the long run, open must win. And that there's really no, there's no trade-off in the long run. Why should open win? A couple different reasons. One, of course, it's our own health and our own health data, and increasingly understanding what that means, especially as you go direct to consumer, will be important. Two, when you're not open, you get locked in, and we've all understood what happens when you have large proprietary systems where you're locked into something critical, that both cost and transparency and values get lost. And the third reason is that health obviously includes mental health. And as we begin to engage with AI systems, I mean, you already see it today in consumer tech and people getting very engaged with AI chatbots, but increasingly as you have your own systems, like that feedback loop is direct into your own brain, right? And the mechanisms by which we increasingly engage with AI, both in, maybe I'll call it hard healthcare, but the softer lifestyle healthcare, right? That social media was a lifestyle for a while, and it's intensely damaging, to some sets of people. And so this question of what are we doing to our brains, how are we tuning our brains, what is the external systems doing to the way we actually think, has to be open in the long run. Like no one company or 5 companies can own, the way we're engaging with our own brains. So that's, to me, like a given. There are questions of what open means. And open source software does not translate directly. Right? It didn't translate directly to open data, but it more clearly doesn't translate directly or exactly into AI systems, or weights and models. And so there is a discussion about what does open mean. And some of that is in technical licensing terms. But there's a deeper piece of it, which I call the ethos of open. Like, what was open source about? It wasn't all about free. It was actually about more opportunity for more people to participate and more people to create. It's an empowerment meme. And it's also a choice meme. In a true open system, if the provider goes bad, you have the option to make an alternative, right? And that's a real shift of power, and it's a real shift of economics, too. So that ethos of more people can participate, it's transparent, yes, but often we can see things are terrible. They're transparent, but we know they're terrible, but we have no way to fix them. And the ethos of open at its underlying is to give people a way to fix it. So we don't know what open means exactly, but we know enough about the open source movement and how it went from being fringe, developer, radical, to being mainstream, to have done a lot of learning. And I would say we don't know exactly what win means either. What does it mean for open to win? And certainly, I'll use a consumer marketplace example. With Firefox, Firefox was credited with changing the landscape of the internet in the early days. But it never had more than 30% market share in its ever. So winning was not dominating. It wasn't being like the monopoly or the duopoly or whatever you think of it as. And so this question of winning is an alternative that's available. It's a place that allows examples of what it looks like. So you might choose to use a proprietary system, but if you have a good open system that's got different goals, like public benefit goals, you can shift the system so that everyone has a better alternative.
Amazing. I want to take up that narrative of how do we do digital transformation and look to a leader in Rwanda who led a digital transformation. Regis, you oversaw the work that happened at the Bank of Rwanda. You're now the CEO of the Rwanda Social Security Board, where you oversee all the retirement benefits for every Rwandan. You manage 90% of the insurance benefits for Rwandans. I'm curious, both from the perspective of an investor and someone who is managing a non-trivial health budget, how do we think about sustainability in AI for health? What advice would you give to our future AI for health African unicorns?
Thank you, and I appreciate the privilege of being on the panel as well with such panelists. In summary, I would say sustainability of AI in health is really about ecosystems and people, meaning investing in interoperable systems that put people, not data, at the center. What has been achieved, whether it was a Bank of Kigali or what is happening currently at Rwanda Social Security Board, an organization that ensures and pays over 90% of all the medical bills in Rwanda. It's really about putting people at the center. We have summarized our strategy or our motto in 3 words: member first, again, the part of putting people at the center. For whom are we doing the research? For whom are we investing for? For whom are we doing research for? For whom are we making decisions for? And being data-driven. So member first, data-driven. Technology is available, and as much as there's still a gap in the talent, the beauty of what AI provides today is also the capacity to innovate at scale without necessarily having the hardcore skills that were necessary in the past. But the ability to provide the latest, most accurate information to every level of decision making, from the CEO to the analyst, having the same information and minimizing the gap or the timeline to make a decision. And lastly, which is an output, high performance. So being a member first, data-driven, high-performing organization. We've seen that transformation happen in the past 3 years, I would say. And I want to give a shout out to the Gates Foundation because they do fund one of the initiatives we have on data mining and AI development at RSSB, where we have seen, working with the Ministry of Health, tremendous value in terms of optimization of supply chain of medicine, cost and time saving, fraud detection, and all that for an organization that is traditionally, large. It's a slow, big elephant. Gives you that power to move faster and react faster. And this doesn't just limit itself to that stage, because now you're able to advise at the policy level, the benefit package over time. So the power of AI, its sustainability over time, I don't think we have seen probably 2% of what's possible ahead. To the people in the health industry, I think all of us are going to expect a world where treatment and medicine and access to treatment become more affordable. When you talk about things like telemedicine, which we do insure, and we've had experience working with telemedicine companies and paying, for us it's about the best value proposition to our members at all time. And that in Rwanda we have a saying, doing less with more. As cliche as it sounds, it's our guiding motto, doing less with more. And AI, if anything, has flattened that barrier. To the innovators, I would say innovate with purpose and ground yourself in local context. Know who you are working for. For whom am I doing what I'm doing? Am I innovating? And not just focus on, valuations, but really focus on lives saved, lives improved. You can make money, but if you're talking about sustainability for a long run, you really have to put the people at the center. I'll leave it like that. The rest is partnership. To the old adage, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. But I think by sharing data and accessing other people's work, the possibilities what can be unlocked is limitless. I'll leave it like that, maybe answer more later.
Thank you, Regis. I want to stick with the story of Rwanda and our host for a moment and come back to you, Minister, if I can. I think the greatest way to show our appreciation is to learn the hard-won lessons of what Rwanda has achieved, right? The geometric growth, the transformation has been incredible, and I think it does come down at its core to decision-making, right? There have been brilliant people in power who have made sensible decisions when sensible decisions need to be made, right? We've talked about the need for focusing the product development on human-centered design, right? Make sure you're solving a problem for a community health worker, for a facility-based worker. We've talked about the evidence gap, right, as a critical thing that you need as a decision maker to understand where to park what money we have, right, to make that money go further. I'm curious what else you think about when you are making decisions, right? We're very privileged to have somehow convinced you to partner with us on an AI-based tool at Path that we've got partners in Rwanda that are developing. What was it in those conversations, not just with us, please, there's no need to embarrass me, but with any partner that comes to you? Like, we ran an initiative that was funded by the Gates Foundation and USAID for many years that supported governments with this. What's the secret sauce that gets you to say yes?
So I think the first point is starting from the logic itself. Can we test this? Is it going to make sense? Then you can confirm at which level this solution is going to help you. But it shouldn't be that you wait for the facts to even think about a solution. And as Regis was saying, you need to be driven by a problem you're about to solve, not just bringing another solution in addition to what you have. And to have also mindfulness about how much is it going to cost me, is it scalable, is it needed, and then that level of thinking should be taking months. It should be maybe 1 hour conversation. I have these problems. I know the gaps in the system because I have routine data. I'm following up on what I need. Then if a solution is proposed, I just look into my list of priorities, where it fits. Is it going to be tested? And I can be open to even give chance for that proof of concept. That is what we've been doing here in Rwanda. When it comes to AI, I think the question is, do we need AI right now? And the answer to me is that we need AI yesterday. And the next question is it safe? Because doctors always talk about safety and also treatment outcome. So the safety of such kind of solutions shouldn't be the problem upfront, because we are used to make guidelines and standards on how it works. So for health specifically, we have enough data to prove that there are many AI solutions that actually work even better than our own doctors, many times better. We have facts, it's published, it's available in diagnostics, in treatment, in even preventing diseases to happen, detecting risks for stroke, for example, or drug resistance. The AI solutions can do much better than even our own laboratories. Now the question is, how are we ready to embrace it? What do we check first? How do we open our policies within healthcare systems? I've seen my fellow ministers in the room in health and also ICT. The Ministry of ICT has done its job, at least for Rwanda. They put in place policies and guidelines for AI in general. But if you go to the healthcare systems, you probably find we're still using the policies of the medicine of the past that are very structured, very methodological, very rigid. And how do we open it for these solutions to help us? How do we open our hospitals for these kind of solutions? Because they are going to help them instead of them resisting the solutions. So I think it is a crossroad on these solutions, the old practice, how do we connect both safely and everyone comfortable, but the benefits are very clear.
Brilliant, and I will serve as first-hand witness to the fact that your team definitely held our feet to the fire when we showed up with a proposal and asked us to make sure, had we brought everyone along for the ride? Were the clinicians comfortable? Had we thought about the integration? So very grateful for that partnership. But I started by asking you that if there was a single challenge that you could point our entrepreneurs in the room towards, what would it be? I want to flip that question around a bit and say, there are things that donors know that we won't as mere mortals for many years until they come out with a brilliant paper, with a press release. Last year, we saw the Nobel Prize for Chemistry go to two great groups, one at the University of Washington and another to DeepMind for protein folding and for drug design. Whilst that wasn't a Nobel Prize for health, I think of it as one. There are others in the pipeline. So I'm going to turn to first you, Trevor, and then you, Rachel. What do you know of in the pipeline that has you excited about what AI can do for health and for science? What are you seeing that the rest of us aren't, that we're allowed to know about?
Well, Bilal, you know, I think sadly, if you'd asked me this question 6 months ago, I would have said that this new idea, this fresh idea, is probably going to come from one of those big constructs like a DeepMind, or even one of those big academic groups, Mila Institute, Yoshio Bengio's group, that have got access to billions of dollars of compute and will be able to develop the next sort of stage of the AI game. But I think over the last 6 months, things have moved in our direction to the open source issue, which Michelle was alluding to over here. We see that the AI world has drifted more in that direction. We see that some fundamental advances were made with relatively low compute and relatively few dollars. So, and what is the game right now? Well, it's around inference and reasoning. So I think it's more about cleverness and algorithms than massive compute. So I'm really hopeful now that that next recipient of whatever we create, the AI Nobel Prize in health, it could be sitting in the audience over here, or is a young student somewhere on the continent who's getting excited about AI and now doesn't have such a high barrier of getting into the game.
Excellent, absolutely. I honestly think that when you have people like Darlington able to come up on stage and tell us how they can go pound for pound with the model that won DeepMind their Nobel, the winds have shifted. Rachel?
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, it's really exciting to see the advances in AI for scientific discovery. Perhaps sometimes forgotten, but Demis Hassabis was funded by the Wellcome Trust in the early stages of his career. And I think what's really interesting is that if you look at many of the Nobel Prize winners, they often come from unusually interdisciplinary backgrounds. Demis was a computer scientist who did a PhD in neuroscience, who solved a structural biology problem and got the chemistry Nobel Prize. So actually that harnessing in Africa, that spirit of interdisciplinary research is, I think, what's going to be key to the breakthroughs of the future. Across Wellcome's portfolio, I've been impressed with the extraordinary breadth of innovation here in Africa. I completely agree that the capability is here in Africa on the continent. I can see advances in our major international programs in KEMRI, in RE, and in the Malawi Liverpool program, in the Science Foundation for Africa, in the new African Bioinformatics Institute that we funded to grow genomics capability on the continent. But in my academic career, I often looked ahead of the field. So we were developing deep learning algorithms for early warnings 10 years ago, more than 10 years ago, so ahead of the field. And also, just before Christmas, I launched the UK's first quantum hub for biomedicine. So again, looking ahead of the field to see where emerging capabilities could have transformational impact. I heard quantum mentioned in the last session, but many of you might know that this year is the UN International Year of Quantum Science and Technology. And it's important, I think, that we act now to ensure that investments are made in the global south to ensure that everyone has the opportunity to benefit from advances in quantum computing, quantum secure communications. And in my area, we were looking at quantum enhanced diagnostics using special sorts of particles in lateral flow tests that could be deployed. But in my new welcome role, I'm going to highlight the importance of discovery science, this really groundbreaking research that could have transformational capabilities. And one area that I'm really excited about is the Human Cell Atlas project. It's absolutely incredible if you haven't seen it. So it's using machine learning and spatial biology to map cells in our body and organs in our body and reproductive systems and looking at embryo development. It's identifying new biomarkers and transforming our understanding of the human body. And there are many researchers on the continent of Africa involved in a large open source network around the world. So I think that's one to watch for a future Nobel Prize.
Thanks, Rachel. Perfect timing. And I think the minister now needs to go make an important decision. So if you join me in saying thank you to him, he's going to run away. And then I'm going to ask one quick question and we'll be done in the next 2 minutes.
I want to mention exactly what we're going to do right now because it's connected to
amazing.
In the next 15 minutes, we are launching the National Health Intelligence Center, which is a center putting together all the data from our health systems and is for decision making. But also, in addition to that, it's an opportunity for embedding in these AI solutions to make more faster analytics, checking problems, detecting outbreaks before they happen. So these are the kind of real, concrete investment that we're seeing happening. And I want also to thank our partners, the Gates Foundation, the STBF, Dr. Senite is here, and also I think Fred is in the room, who have been helping us to make this happen. So we also call upon to other partners who would want to see this and also work with us. Thank you so much.
And my last quick question to the group. My last quick question to the group. I think that's a wonderful platform to launch from. AI is going to impact health on the continent. That's a given. The least we can do is make sure it's a positive impact. But true success or failure, I think, will be determined by whether we can make sure that Africa is more than just a consumer of AI in its healthcare system. So in one sentence alone, because I will start to get angry looks. We're going to start with you, Regis. What is the one thing that we need to do so that we pivot from a world where we talk about by Africans, for Africans, and instead talk about one where it's by Africans, for the world?
Thank you. One sentence I say, one of my favorite is, the best way to predict the future is to create it. So I think enough has been said. It's time to do. We've heard this morning about the type of infrastructure being set up here. It sounds like the will is there, the leadership vision and clarity and support is there. As innovators and investors, we must do. As investors, I would say 3 things we invest in. One is investing in digital infrastructure. We're actually looking forward as the largest public investment fund here to be part of that journey. Number 2, investing in access to the information. Make sure that everyone is able to access the latest, whether it's for preventative measures or for innovation product they want to do. Lastly, in life science, and when you hear everybody talk here, and we happen to have invested in a few life science companies which are doing quite well, just more than ever, it's possible to cure and eradicate some diseases and prevent some that make sure they will never come. So I'll leave it at that.
Amazing. Rachel?
I will keep it to one sentence.
Amazing.
I would champion investing in talent. I think I'm going to quote the Nigerian minister: "AI is young, Africa is young." Africa has the demographic dividend, as it's called. 1 in 4 people in the world will be African by 2050, with incredible talent. And I think Africa's poised to be a strong leader in this field of AI, and Welcome will be supporting and creating that ecosystem.
Fantastic. Trevor?
One longer sentence.
Yeah.
So a call to action to health regulators, co-funders. Let's bring these ideas, these innovations that we're hearing about over here, to scale to the next stage, so we can take them to the patients that are waiting for them.
Fantastic. Dino?
For me, it's about necessity being our secret weapon, and our African necessities will drive innovation that then inspires the world. Thanks.
Mitchell?
It's time to build, and I would build open for collaboration and broader scaling.
Fantastic. Join me in saying thank you to our panel, folks.